Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael Scott from Penn State University, and I have the honor of introducing our next guest speaker, Lieutenant General Robert Brown. Lieutenant General Brown has served in leadership positions from platoon level to corps. His operational experience extends from Haiti, Bosnia, Iraq, and assignments in the Pacific, Europe, and continental U.S., including 2 tours of combat in Iraq. Lieutenant General Brown currently serves as a commander of the U.S. Army Combined Arms Center at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Lieutenant General Brown leads the synchronization of leader development across the Army, the management of the Army training, support, and training development enterprises, and the development and integration of the doctrine the U.S. Army uses to fight and win our nation's wars. His education includes a Bachelor of Science from the United States Military Academy, a master's degree in education from the University of Virginia, and a master's degree in national security and strategic studies as a distinguished graduate of the National Defense University. Ladies and gentlemen, the commander of the Commanding General U.S. Army Combined Arms Center, Lieutenant General Robert B. Brown.
That's right, sit down, relax, sit down. How y'all doing? All right, General Perkins warmed you all up and told me you were all fired up, a great group. Congratulations, first of all, for being here. For everybody here except the West Pointers, you were at the top of your class and you were in this. I understand the West Pointers was kind of a, hey you, we got nobody else to go, why don't you go? Is that the case? You got to pick on West Point a little bit, right? No, but no, really, congratulations to all. I know the Mission Command Seminar is going on at West Point, and I participated in that before. It's a great event, so we don't have some of the traditional seniors here, but we got a great representative, some of the seniors, and a great group. So I really want to talk to you about our strength and how lucky you are that you decided to join this great profession, because our strength is our people. And unlike any other organization in the world, people are our advantage. And we do a pretty good job of helping people reach their potential, but that's what you'll be all about when you get out there. And so let me start. I'll go over a little bit of history lesson first. Just so that's, but we all think President Washington, but that's General Washington there at Valley Forge. And so going way back, before we were a nation, all right, we were outnumbered, out-technologied. We're fighting against a force that much superior to us, but there's something in those people that led. We had von Steuben helping with some standards and stuff, but really the inspiration of the leader and the people that saved the day at Valley Forge. Then you look at Teddy Roosevelt going up San Juan Heights. Again, people made the difference. We were, in fact, a lot of those folks that went up with him weren't even from his unity trained with. Some of these things that are going to happen to you. And then World War I, the doughboys show up and turn the tide. That amazing spirit they had in a war that was a stalemate, but the spirit of the American soldier, people are our advantage. And then this is probably the coolest example, the greatest example of all time. Anybody here know who that is? It'd be a miracle if you did. But I've seen it happen like once in, a blue moon. Anybody know who that is? Any history majors here? Yeah. Who said that? Oh, the West Pointer, of course. You see, that just confirms my assumption there. Obviously not at the top of his class, slamming the 3-star general that there I am in World War II. But actually, that'd be pretty cool. I'd like to be this guy. So you get a coin for that. What's your name, young man?
Tommy Maddox, sir.
What?
Tommy Maddox, sir.
Tommy Maddox. What a cool name. All right, and what branch are you going to go? Oh, all right. So you get a coin just for that alone. But great comment. But it figures, the top of the class, the ROTC, you would have never said that, right? Okay, that's Sergeant Cullen. What's really cool about Sergeant Cullen, so D-Day was probably the greatest planning in the history of the world, even to this day. Years we planned D-Day. I'm sure some of you have studied it. For God's sakes, Patton was a deception operation for D-Day. A fake division over in England. They planned this for years, right? Has anybody been to Normandy? It's pretty awesome. I really recommend go there. It'll blow you away when you go and walk around. So here we have this incredible planning. And you got a plan, but we get over there, and once we've taken the beach and everything, we're stuck. We were stuck by these things called hedgerows, the bocage, okay? It's how they marked the French farming acres in hectares with these kind of like wait a minute vines and then berms that divided the land. So what happened was, the enemy always gets a vote. All this planning, the enemy gets a vote. They're pretty smart, and they're defending behind this tough terrain, channelizing us to the roads and kicking our butt. We can't get off the beach. If you watch the movies, you read about D-Day, we're kind of stuck there, right? And trying to break out, but we're stuck. And what other army? An E-5 engineer, Sergeant Cullen, is down on the beach, and he sees these hexagons left by the Germans. You know, those the pointy metal to keep us from landing there and stuff. So he cuts the hexagon and welds it as a blade to the front of a tank. And that leads to the way we get through those tough hedgerows and turns the tide. An E-5. Now, I would submit to you, what other army in the world, what other military would have an E-5 that has the solution on the beach? So you can plan all you want, and you've got a plan. You guys have been doing, and you're prepped for becoming lieutenants. You're doing op orders like crazy. You're planning, and that's really important. But no matter how hard you plan, the enemy gets a vote, something's going to be different. It's going to require what General Combs is trying to do with you, agile, adaptive leader, thinking, applying a creative solution to a complex problem in a timely manner. Now, will your organization, I don't care whether you're going to be an Army nurse, whether you're going to be an air defender, signal, infantry, armor, it doesn't matter. Cyber, will your Sergeant Cullen be able to come up with that idea, and will it make it through the ranks? Is that the type of organization you have? That's mission command today. That's why command and control that we had for hundreds of years in the Army didn't work in this environment today. It's so complex, and you're studying about that. One of the panels, you'll talk about this complex world. The velocity of human interaction is so fast that unless you have a Sergeant Cullen that can help you provide info from the bottom up where they know the situation the best, you're going to fail. Right? People are our advantage, the Sergeant Cullens. There's a spirit in the United States. There's a spirit that comes from our democracy, our way, and it's that kind of bucking the system attitude sometimes. It's, and it's not encouraged in some other, other societies, and I'll talk about it a little later, where it's just not in their culture. It's in our culture. We have folks that will come up with ideas. Now, but if you do it wrong, you can turn off those ideas pretty quick. There used to be a saying sometimes you'd hear in the Army, way back when I was sitting where you'd hear, what the hell would you know, Sergeant Cullen? I got more time in the latrine than you got in the Army. What would you know? That type attitude. You'll fail if that's your attitude, because the best ideas come from the edge. They're closest to the problem. And I've seen it over and over again in combat where those ideas come up, even in those organizations where they don't encourage it, the people will do it on the ground because their lives depend on it. They're going to save themselves. Now, they can be much more effective and and unstoppable when the organization encourages that. And that's not easy to do, and we'll talk a little bit about how you get that. But that'd be my first question to you. Is Sergeant Cullen going to give you that idea? And how do you encourage it? This is Hal Moore. If you haven't read We Were Soldiers once, I think it's mandatory reading everywhere now. I had the honor of getting to spend a lot of time with General Moore. The battalion I commanded, two of the companies were in the fight with him. No, I was not there. For the cadet over there, he's probably thinking I was there in Vietnam as well. But Hal Moore had the greatest technology of the time. The first one to do an air assault into operations with the latest in technology. Okay, and again, great plan, but there was a mountain full of thousands of enemy soldiers they didn't know about hiding in this mountain that came out. Leadership, people won the battle, not the technology. Do we want the best technology in the world? Of course. Of course we do. But one of the changes you're all going to see in your time in the military is we had technology before where, quite honestly, people adjusted to the technology. Okay, I had one of the first Stryker brigades in the Army, and I did the testing of that whole concept of Stryker. And we piecemealed systems together. We wanted to start and make all our computer systems, anything from scratch, but it would have taken like 10 years. So we just took what we had and we adjusted. So it was crazy things like the Intel computer couldn't talk and share info with the operations computer. Stupid things we would never do today. But we had to piecemeal them together, do the best we could. So people adjusted to the technology. The future is about technology that leverages people. All right, not people adjusting to it, but the technology that leverages those people to make the best decisions, to find the Sergeant Cullen's ideas, to get them out there to solve these complex problems. So technology that leverages people, big, big difference out there. And heroes like Hal Moore, people are our advantage, as I mentioned. Now here's, anybody know what that is? Maybe some prior service? What's that? What's that? Taxi cab, very good, all right. In Iraq, that's a taxi cab. Now I always wondered what happened. 1980, I bought a Volkswagen Scirocco. They don't even make that damn thing anymore, right? And that was my cadet car. And I was really stupid because my parents said they'd buy me a car since I went to West Point and they didn't have to pay for college. Hell, I should have got a Ferrari or something, right? No, I got a Volkswagen Scirocco, no air conditioning. You had to trade in when I got to Benning. It was like a sweat box. So I'm positive that car is over in Iraq right now. That might be it right there, running like a top. Because they can take a car, 30-year-old car, and make it run forever. It's absolutely amazing. So that's a taxi. So I was up in the city of Mosul in the news a lot lately, and 4,000 of these taxis are all around the city of about 1.8 million in northern Iraq there, shuttling people around. Al-Qaeda decided to stuff these taxis with explosives and drive into usually innocent civilians, including women and children. And the hole from a taxi filled with explosives about the size of this stage up here, the hole that leaves in the ground with nothing left, kills a lot of people. Pretty devious. So there's 4,000 of these taxis. So even if we could, I had from the Syrian border to the Turkish border to the Iranian border was my sector. So even if I could, with a striker brigade, stop every taxi, you wouldn't want to do that anyway because it's how the people got around. You know, so it's pretty clever by a pretty devious enemy, and you see all the, you know, the type devious things they do. They think of things that normal people wouldn't think of, nasty things to do. So this was one of them. So a young company commander, ROTC graduate, by the way, and young company commander had a sector, about 500,000 people in his area, the center of the city. And he had the taxi cab union there in his sector. I was the brigade commander. I didn't even know there was a taxi cab union. A lot of stuff going on, first ever elections, huge area, Syrian border, all kinds of issues. But that company commander knew it. So instead of trying to solve the problem himself, he built a trust with the Iraqis in his sector, and they really trusted him. So we got the taxi cab union drivers together, said, hey, here's a problem. You know, they're killing a lot of innocent people. They were killing some military as well, but mostly civilians. We got to do something about this. The Iraqis, very important point, the Iraqis came up with a solution, not the company commander and his folks. They said, why don't we take the lids off the trunks? You can see there that trunk lid is gone. So that way, if they stuff that vehicle with it, and that's where they would put the explosives, obviously. If you stick in the passenger compartment, somebody's going to see it. You can put a curtain up or something, but then it's pretty damn obvious. So with the lids off, you don't even have to stop them. You can just quickly look, and it's pretty obvious if there's explosives in there. Or really a smart, again, an agile leader having to use host nation, build that trust, solve these complex problems. We don't always have all the answers. These guys had a better answer. However, the enemy gets a vote. So, you know, the next morning, they decided to take those trunk lids off. All 4,000 taxi cab drivers agreed to it. And Al-Qaeda grabbed one of the taxi cab drivers, taking the trunk lid off, cut his head off, put a sign next to it, if you take your trunk lids off, this will happen to you. So they all go, whoa, wait a minute, forget that. So that company commander, that same day, gets them back together, the taxi cab union. Hey, there's 4,000 of you, there's a bunch of us, we can do this. I went out the next day on my TAC and a striker, and I didn't know what the results would be. 4,000 taxis had their trunk lids removed, and we never had another suicide vehicle borne bomb in a taxi again. That's an agile, adaptive leader. Again, solving a complex problem in a timely manner with a creative solution, like you are going through and like you'll talk about here. People are our advantage. We want the best technology, but now more than ever, that technology, you know, things that we had a huge advantage in before, when I was sitting where you were, nobody else had nods. Nobody else had unmanned aerial systems. Hell, we didn't have them when I was sitting there, but even later, nobody else had them. Now you can buy it all on the internet, right? So how long is your technological advantage going to last? You want the best technology, but it's only going to last so long. You want the best equipment, but it's only going to do so much. And one thing I guarantee you, no matter where we go, what we do anywhere in the world, folks will be going after our weaknesses, not our strengths. So they'll be trying to negate that technology. They'll be in a city. You won't know who the enemy is. Nobody's going to sit there with a neon sign, kill me from 35,000 feet. All right, they learn pretty quickly not to do that. So people are our advantage, and agile leaders like this commander here, that's what makes the difference. Now, the Iraqis, the funny thing is the Iraqis put something else in the trunk. What do you think it was? Anybody got a guess? Come on. What would they put in the trunk? Iraqis are driving around, so the trunk lid's off. What did they put in the trunk? What type people? Who said it? Someone back here said kids. Did you say children? Yeah, they put children back there. All right, Cadet DeVilo thinking here, you know. So it's pretty funny. That company commander's feeling pretty good. He solved this problem, but all his buddies were saying, yeah, but look at what you did for the kids of Iraq. They'd be flying down the highway at 80 miles an hour, kids in the trunk waving, you know, no car seats or anything. But that's just how it is, you know, different culture. So, but it was really a great move. So this up here is just to let you know, we're working all this stuff. While you're studying hard, we're studying as well, and we're working. Whole team looking at the future and what we need, and and how we can continue to improve and keep this advantage. So if you look there, there's prevent, shape, and win. The new Army operating concept as we look at the future, which you all will be living. You'll be living this, and we talk about for the first time ever in the history of the Army, 240 years, you can win by preventing and shaping. We never said that before. We say you can only win by fighting. But there's great examples of this. Preventing conflict, working with your allies around the world, shaping conflict by things you do to deter aggression. The Philippines is probably the best example in the last 10 years of this. In the Philippines, we had insurgents on Holo Island. The U.S. Army, Special Ops, Conventional has been working with the Philippine Army for, about 18 years now and defeated that insurgency. That's preventing and shaping and winning. Now, full credit, it's not going to be a victory parade, a ticker tape parade in New York City. Credit goes to the Philippine Army, as it should. But we're working with them. You'll be involved in a lot of that out there, preventing and shaping all over the world. And we're regionally aligned, so you can do that. And it's pretty neat. You join the Army to go places and see things. You'll be going places and seeing things, I guarantee it. When I was commanding 1st Corps in the Pacific, we had, at any one time, I'd have about 3,000 folks in the Pacific. I'd have a platoon in jungle school in Brunei. I'd have a company in Indonesia. The Lucky company was in Australia or New Zealand. That was a pretty good deal. Everybody'd fight for that one. And then there's folks all over the place, Japan, Korea, all over, regionally engaged, preventing and shaping. But in the middle is win, because that's what our nation pays us to do, is win those conflicts. And you see the other things in the middle. The Army profession, you're going to talk a little bit about that here. I know you talk about it in your ROTC curriculum. Let me tell you, that is really important. Why do you think, just think for a minute, I'm going to pick on somebody else for a coin. Why do you think the Army profession, being a professional, is more important now, bold statement I'll make, more important now than ever in the history of the Army? Why do you think that is? Yeah, right there. Just stay seated, it's all right. You're definitely on to the reason. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So you get a coin. Come see me afterwards. The aid's over there, but we'll get you a coin afterwards. Come see me. So there's a little bit more to it, but you're hitting it. Essentially, stuff that my platoon would do when I was defending like the Fulda Gap in Germany back in the Cold War, or World War II, the big one, as he would say back there. My platoon would do stuff and nobody'd hear about it. Thank God, or I guarantee you I wouldn't be standing here. Okay, they'd do some stuff. Now, there'll never be another conflict. There'll never be another. You could be HA, helping out with a disaster response, a hurricane response. You could be helping out somewhere in the world, but soldier does something wrong. There'll never be another conflict where it's not videoed, blogged, tweeted, text. People know. I mean, look at Abu Ghraib as an example. I was nowhere near Abu Ghraib, nothing to do with it, way up north, but I had soldiers die because of what happened in Abu Ghraib, because of the recruiting that caused and the surge in my area. And so that, lack of professionalism, that lowering yourself to the enemy's level, and that's the second part of it. So you're absolutely right about connectivity. The second part of it is those we will face are going after our weaknesses, and they want nothing better than to drag you down to that level, right? It's like, they do not follow the Geneva Convention. I'm not talking extremists, of course, but even nation states we're seeing now that don't follow a convention, don't follow rules, and they want you to lower yourself to their level, right? And I'll tell you what happens when you're a platoon leader. I've seen it a bunch, Something will happen. The enemy will do something really devious, horrible, like that taxi exploding, killing innocent women and children, maybe injuring a soldier. And soldiers will get really upset, and they'll be standing in a group afterwards. And a couple of them pounding their fists, they want to get revenge. A couple of them are crying and over in the corner. A couple of them don't know what to do. And you get the chaplain, you get together, you talk to them. But I'm going to tell you what, the profession is incredibly important. The professional ethics, ethical standards. And we've been working on that a ton because a lot of us found out as we deployed to combat, you would face ethical dilemmas constantly. But in our training, we wouldn't. We just sort of assumed everybody, you don't want to face it for the first time in conflict. You want to practice. So, at the combat training centers, at home station, throw in some ethical dilemmas and have people react to it and then talk about it, what they did. It's really important because people are our advantage, and we lose that advantage if they lower themselves to the level of some of these really, barbaric acts that some enemies will do to us. You see another one up there, physical supremacy. This is a tough business. Doesn't matter what branch you are again. It does not matter. The good news is now we have a standard for every MOS. And anybody, or any branch, and anybody that meets that standard can do it. That is awesome. I've been pushing for that for a long time. I have a daughter who's a captain, could outrun everybody in here, I guarantee you. Anybody. She just ran the Olympic marathon trials, ran 2:37 marathon. I'll brag a little bit as a dad. She's teaching up in the phys ed department at West Point, Captain Kelly Callaway, pretty amazing young lady, won the Marine Corps marathon. So I've always thought, I have 3 daughters, and I've always thought there ought to be a standard. Anybody that can attain that standard can do that, whatever they want to do. They should be, that's America. That's democracy. And so we've got that now. It's fantastic, recent decisions. But physical supremacy, it's not just running fast. It's also resilience. It's toughness. It's all those things you're going to have to instill in your soldiers. Because for whatever reason, I'm just going to tell you, soldiers today are not as resilient. I'm going to sound like an old fart now. Back when I was in WW2 there, as he said up there, they're not as resilient. When you read about some of the, generations have gotten softer. My generation's gotten softer because we have more luxuries in life. It's just the way it is. So they're not as resilient. You got to really work on it. You'll have a soldier, your best soldier, doing great stuff. And one thing will go wrong, and they'll fall off a cliff and have all kinds of problems real quickly. So it's a big issue. So that physical supremacy, resilient, total fitness. You see leader development, agile, adaptive, critical thinkers. I'm going to tell you, anybody who is above the rank of lieutenant colonel in the Army wouldn't have gotten where they were without somebody that developed them as a leader. It's critical. It's also your greatest reward. It won't be something you do. It'll be folks you work with, that private you work with that is thinking about being a doctor, and later, you show them how to do goals, you help them out, you teach them, and then they're an Army doctor 15 years later thanking you about it. So it's the best reward you'll get. It's pretty awesome. And it gets back to a key principle as well. So one key piece of advice is soldiers don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. They do not care how much you know. They could care less if Lieutenant Bryce is a Rhodes Scholar, 4.0, they could care less. But they also could care less if he barely made it. It's probably more the story, right? Huh, Bryce? So you barely made it through, but they will know, and it's very interesting. You take a soldier that barely got their GED or a soldier with a PhD, and they will know if you care or not. Now that sounds really easy and obvious, but I'm going to tell you it's not. I told you I have a daughter, so my daughter was ROTC. 4 years, she didn't ask me a thing, in ROTC. The night before she takes her platoon, her first platoon, she gets a hold of me. I'm in Iraq. I thought it was an emergency. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Dad, tell me the secret. What's the secret? All of a sudden, she's concerned about, what's the big secret? And I told her what I just told you about caring. She's like, oh, come on. Come on, Dad. That can't be it. That's too obvious. But about 3 months later, I talked to her again, and she's like, hey, you were right. Like, this lieutenant, will be working on the computer because they're going through an obstacle course. It's pretty obvious he doesn't want to get dirty or tired. This person, you can tell they're out for themselves, and all the soldiers know it. And they only care about themselves and looking good. And the soldiers won't do anything for them because they can sense it a mile away. From the time we're kids, we're taught. Who are the folks you admired most as you were growing up in high school? Was it the coach who was selfish and wanted to win the games for themselves? No, it's a coach that was selfless and cared about you. It's that teacher that cared about you. It's that ROTC instructor that cared about you and developing you. That's who you admire. Doesn't even matter. They're smart, whatever. It's folks that care, and soldiers can see that. So that is a key thing. And then the rest of the stuff up here you see, cohesive teams, trusted professionals. The bottom line, what you need to know is we have a method to really make sure we develop leaders that thrive in ambiguity and chaos. Over the last 14 years, we've been saying folks who are comfortable in ambiguity and chaos, comfort doesn't win. You've got to thrive. It's the reason brought up earlier about connectivity, and we're all connected, and the world is so complex, the velocity of human interaction. There are folks that have more ability, capability against us than ever before. So if you're not thriving, we're not going to win. And then we got to get at realistic training, developing those agile adaptive leaders, and things like education and improving that all across the board, which we're working on for your future soldiers. All right, then when you look, I love this picture because, again, it gets back to, you see Sergeant Cullen there. For a coin, who's the other individual up there? Not Eisenhower, that's too obvious. But over on the left, no, that's not me again in World War II. Who's that on the left there? Anybody know? Okay, it's Fox Connor. And I point out, I ask you, I knew you wouldn't know, most likely, but that's kind of the whole point. Fox Connor developed leaders like nobody else. There's a book out there called Gray Eminence, and it's about leader development and mentorship of Fox Connor. Fox Connor mentored a guy named George Patton when he was a major. Patton brought a guy over to dinner at Fox Connor's house when Fox Connor was a colonel named Eisenhower. So Fox Connor met Eisenhower. Eisenhower was a major who missed World War I, and a major at nearly 20 years who was going to retire and was not accepted to come here to Leavenworth for the Command General Staff College. In those days, if you didn't come to Leavenworth, it's not that you might not get promoted, you would not get promoted. You got promoted based on how you did here in CGSC. That's what got you promoted. So if he's not attending, he would have retired, Major Eisenhower. You wouldn't have any idea who I'm talking about. But Fox Connor saw a lot of talent. And so when Fox Connor went to Panama, he had Eisenhower come work for him as a major, and he made him read Clausewitz like 3 times. And if you read about Eisenhower, Eisenhower will say that Fox Connor reinvigorated my love of history, of the profession, of leadership, of the Army. And then Fox Connor did something kind of remarkable. He told Eisenhower, hey, don't ask any questions. And he said, you're going to branch transfer to AG, which he did. And he was sent on assignment in Indiana. Next thing you know, guess what? He got picked up to go to Command General Staff College as an AG officer. Then he got to Command General Staff College, and Fox Connor had him branch transfer back to infantry. And infantry branch told him, you won't make it, Eisenhower. He finished first in his class and got promoted, and the rest is history. How important is leader development? And a guy like Fox Connor and developing those around you, how important. He also, by the way, mentored a couple other guys named Bradley and one of the individuals you're here for named Marshall. Fox Connor mentored him, not as much, but did mentorship with George Marshall as well. So how important is leader development? I could tell 100 more stories about leader development involving Marshall and some of the folks that he brought up. So leader development is key. And again, I go back to, it's really essential for us, because what other army in the world has those type of individuals that are going to make those monumental decisions, changes? People are our advantage, but you got to develop people. You got to recognize talent. You got to recognize the Sergeant Cullens. You got to create that atmosphere of trust, right? Team, empowered, and accept prudent risk. All those things, and that they understand your intent, whether you're the platoon leader, the commander, whatever, absolutely key. And then you look at this lieutenant out there in the middle of Afghanistan, alone and unafraid. That's mission command, okay? Empowered leaders. We cannot, for the very reason that was mentioned earlier, is it Schrock? Okay, I couldn't remember. Okay, that's Schrock, great point. Information moves so rapidly today. I mean, think about it. It's the first time in history that our enemies can use the same technology we can, right? I mean, hell, in World War II, and I keep laughing because I'm thinking, now you're all thinking I was there, but I'm telling you, in World War II, we knew the Japanese and German codes, and it was still tough to defeat them, right? We don't know the codes now, and they can use this technology and leverage it. And so, you have to empower folks or you will fail. You don't have time to go all the way up the chain of command, get something approved, and all the way back. That company commander with that taxi cab I was telling you about, he worked for a guy named Eric Carilla. He's a 2-star general now, a superstar. He was a battalion commander. He didn't require that company commander to go all the way up and get approval from him. He was empowered. He did all that stuff. He knew he needed to do it. He took the initiative. That's mission command, and we do that better than anybody else in the world. And I will tell you, an E5 in our Army, the youngest sergeant in our Army, does what a colonel in the Chinese Army does, and better. I know. I have been with the Chinese Army. I've been in China, and I have studied. I've been 12 years in the Pacific, and I can tell you that E5 does what a colonel in the Chinese Army does, and does it better. That is what makes us greatest army in the world, the people, and that empowerment and that mission command. And we cannot lose that. And I'm telling you, that'll be your biggest challenge. There will be those who want to put a lot of weight on this young private there walking through the streets of Iraq, who's very confident, very well trained. Absolutely key. Before, if that squad wasn't doing their job, we could find out what's going on other ways. Satellites, technology. Unfortunately, again, it's much tougher now. You can find out some things, but it's much tougher. People are much better at hiding their intentions. So if that squad doesn't know what's going on and pass it from the bottom up, we'll never truly know what's going on. The squad is decisive. That lowest level, it's absolutely key. But it puts a huge burden on this soldier. People think being a soldier, still to this day, this is about a year ago, the chief of naval operations said, hey, cut the Army, because you can grow a soldier rapidly. Maybe 30 years ago, not today. They have to know such complex rules of engagement, they have to make split-second decisions, overwhelming amounts of information on a daily basis, dozens of times a day. It's unbelievable. I would submit it's easier to cut a sailor who's sitting behind a machine on a ship. Where are they going to go? They got 3 people behind him. I've been on ships. They got 3 people behind him telling him what to do. He just has to know that machine. This young private first class out there has to know a hell of a lot of stuff, and empowered out there, alone and unafraid. Well, not alone. He's with his team, but, he's going to be put in unbelievable situations. But that puts a huge load, and that's what this only second PowerPoint, but I want to show you, because it's really important you understand this, of why it's so important, this empowerment and what's so that young soldier, if North Korea would attack us tonight, and the motto over in Korea for the U.S. forces and the South Koreans is ready to fight tonight, all right, ready to fight tonight. If North Korea would attack tonight, we would kick their butts, because our existing material solutions we're quite ready for that. It would be a tough fight. I'm not saying it wouldn't be tough. If you've ever been over to Seoul, there's like 24 million people in Seoul. It's crazy crowded, all kinds of issues. There'd be a whole bunch, but we would win based on our equipment, training, etc. But as you move over here towards strategic uncertainty, the Iran, the ISIL, the Russia, what they're doing in the Ukraine and Syria as well, criminal networks, cyber, homeland security. You move over here, these more amorphous and ambiguous threats. The material solutions just don't, and the technology, it just does not keep up. I wish it did. I wish we could develop stuff instantly, but it takes time. And that's the whole reason they're over here in this strategic uncertainty. And that cognitive demands on that soldier you'll be leading go up a lot. And so we require more than we ever have before on that soldier, and it will continue to grow. So we're working on how are we a little tougher on bringing soldiers in. It'll be tougher to get in. You'll be screened in more instead of right now we currently just sort of screen out. Now we can screen in more. Really will work everything from education and training, more like what you traditionally think of special ops today. It's already moving that way for conventional. Conventional forces are doing what special ops used to do, and special ops is doing even more special stuff. And that's because of what's happening here. And our hedge against uncertainty, nobody has a crystal ball, knows what's going to happen. You're going to see a lot of things. Usually you'll end up going somewhere. At first you can't pronounce the names. You don't even know where it is. But our Hedge are those cohesive teams of Army professionals that thrive in ambiguity and chaos. Cohesive teams of Army professionals that thrive in conditions of ambiguity and chaos. All right, that'll get after and defeat anybody out there, I guarantee it. People are our advantage. And again, I talk the technology that leverages people, not people that adjust to technology. And you'll see that. You'll be involved in that, I would say certainly more than anybody who's lieutenant colonel and above. It's kind of too late for us. You will be the ones involved in it, providing the feedback. Hey, this system doesn't work. We got to do this and it'll work better. You understand it better. I'm a digital immigrant. You know, you all grew up with the digits. It's very natural. That's why I have to go to my 8-year-old granddaughter to have her help me with my iPad and stuff, you know. But, you know, she knows it. She grew up with it. And so you'll have to help us with the technology leverages the people. And then cohesive teams. Look at their faces for a second. All right, they are focused. They are going to take care of that casualty there. Look at the guy in the back, the medic in the far back right. I mean, is that a cohesive? That's a team that's taking care of their teammate in a tough situation. And we've all seen it 1,000 times, and it's awesome. But it does not happen by accident. You will need to build that team. You will need to push them, build that trust, and then you'll have that unstoppable. But it doesn't happen by accident, and people don't remain our advantage by accident. It takes a hell of a lot of work and effort, and that's why all of you are sitting here. We need the best leaders in the world to get there. Otherwise, we'll never make it. So that's kind of my pitch on people as our advantage and what we're doing about it. And I think we have time now, which is by miracle. We got about 25 minutes for questions, which is great. So what are your questions? Yeah. Do we have mics for it? No, just stand. Okay, bring the mics on down there. Toss that mic over paddle one. All right. Uh-oh, looks like a canned question. He's got it written down.
Thought of it early, sir. Cadet Lynn, Washington State University. Sir, early on you mentioned building an atmosphere that promotes ingenuity. I was wondering if you had, maybe not pinpoint steps, sir, but kind of guidelines, things you've done to actually build that ingenuity and promote that thinking so that your lower levels, your subordinates, are actively contributing to the mission.
Great question. Where are you at? What school?
Washington State University, sir.
Oh, Cougars, great. I had 2 daughters go to the University of Oregon as well, so they've been kicking your ass lately, I will say. But it's a great school. It's a great school. They beat them this year, didn't they? Yeah, in overtime or something. Was that Oregon, wasn't it? Can't remember. Was that Washington State, the game? Yeah, home game. Okay. Anyway, no, they're coming back. Great question. It is hard. I will tell you, every one of you will leave here saying, oh, I'm going to do that. But let me tell you what happens is it's not unlike so many things in life. So you get to your unit, and you're the additional duty officer of the supply room. And oh, by the way, you're also the arms room additional duty, and then you're given this duty and that duty, and then you're given too much to do and not enough time. Anyway, your plate will be full. And so sometimes what I see is young leaders will get focused on all these other things, which are important. I'm not saying they're not important. But the most important thing is building your team. Again, whether you're leading a cyber team, nurse team, logistics team, infantry team, armor, it doesn't matter. When you're leading that team, you have to take every opportunity you can to build the team. So an example, PT. You can go out there, show up PT, everybody goes, push-ups, sit-ups, and run. Okay, that's great. You building the team? Probably not. Something as simple as like an Indian run, we used to call it. I know where you pass the baton from the back to the front, and so you build the team. Something as simple as they show up for PT, and I've seen this a bunch, and all of a sudden there's water cans to carry, a litter, and they're given instructions, they take off, and all of a sudden there's a casualty, they treat the casualty right, they're medevac, they don't, they're carrying them on the litter. This goes on for 3-4 miles, they're building that team, but that's hard. That's not as easy as just showing up to PT and doing push-ups, sit-ups, and a run. So you have to take every opportunity you can to build your team. And quite honestly, we're better than most organizations, but we're still not good enough at it. We still see a lot of wasted. I was commanded 1st Corps before this, a couple divisions, and I'd go out for PT every day, and I can tell you it's the rare It was the rare occasion that I saw someone really building a team consistently, unfortunately, because, again, people get swamped with, so you really have to work at it. You have to look at the opportunities. You have to think about it. You know, you can go out and do a training event, and it can be rote repetition pretty easily. Unfortunately, the world is not that you don't need rote repetition sometimes. You know, let's take something as simple as marksmanship. You know, I mean, certainly you don't want to have to think about how to fire your weapon. But you certainly better think who you're firing your weapon at, right? But we'll go out to the range, and it's all just green silhouette targets, and we just shoot them all indiscriminately. Will we ever do that in today's world? Even if North Korea attacks South, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians all over the battlefield. There'll be all kinds of confusion. So even if we just painted some of those targets white, they're civilians. Yellow, we don't know what they are. Green, they're enemy. So you had to at least even discriminate. Something as simple as that is better than just going out. So you've really got to think through, are you, everything you do, even as simple as a range, are you developing agile, adaptive leaders? You know, it's the old Patton said, don't tell people how to do something, tell them what, and they'll amaze you with what they come up with. So tell them what to do, outcomes-based training, and then let them figure out how. Don't go out and say, here's what you need to do, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Life is not like that. You all know that. Nobody's out there telling you exactly what to do. Your parents did for quite a while, and then they have no choice. You're out of reach. You're in college, and they have to trust you, right? So, you know, I would say you've got to constantly work on it, and you have to look for every opportunity, and that's what people do wrong. They don't look at every opportunity and they don't work on it. Other questions?
Sir, I'm 5th Brigade, University of Texas, Arlington, Cadet Crook. My question is, you're empowering the soldiers. Where do you draw the line between getting the facts from them to help you make your decisions versus just making the decisions without their information?
I missed the first. Getting who to help you make decisions?
Getting the facts from the soldiers.
Oh, facts from the soldiers?
To make your decisions versus just making the decisions without their facts.
No, that's a good question, a really good question. And I was just visiting Admiral McCraven, now the Chancellor of the University of Texas, and we're partnering with him a lot. The Army is pretty cool with the University of Texas system, and pretty great that he's there and he understands it. So that is more the art of leadership. You know, there's the art and science, and it's interesting because we almost all tend to veer towards the science, just like you want an exact answer, the science of how much input do I get. It's not a science, it's an art, and it depends on, and I hate to say it, it's MET-T dependent, right? You've heard that a million times in all your time, MET-T dependent, but it really is. How much time do you have? Sometimes you won't have time to get others' input. Go through that door, shut up and get through the damn door, but if you've been with that type attitude, I don't want your input constantly, they might not go through the door. Or they'll hesitate. Or they'll find a way to go around the door and not do what you said, you know. So when you can, the default would be any time you can involve those below you, you should. Buy-in is really important. Give you an example. When I was commanding, formed the 2nd Stryker Brigade in the Army, and I gave them my vision, one sentence of what a Stryker Brigade should do. And then I had from as low as I could go in the organization without being too many, about 400 people, a 5,000-person brigade. So we went down to company commander and first sergeant. And they were all there, gathered like this. And I gave them the vision, and then they came up with the unit creed, how we would do things. You know, they went argued, what are the characteristics of the best team they've ever been on? And they came up with pride, discipline, empowerment, camaraderie, and empowerment. Pride, discipline, camaraderie, and empowerment. And they argued that for hours. It took 6 hours. And then within those, they went back and they argued, well, what does it mean to have pride? You know, you're a Lancer soldier 24/7, honor the legacy. And they were doing all this. I didn't say a word as a commander. That's risky, right? But guess what? They bought into that creed, and they lived that creed in combat, all right? So, I mean, there are a lot of ways to do it, but it's the art of forming that team. And when you can involve them, you damn well better or you're foolish. All right, now, you're still in charge, and you got to make the decision. It's not a democracy, right? And they understand that. And then when it comes time to say, hey, get through that door, they're going to do it. Because they know if you had time, and they know that you'd listen to Sergeant Cullen. All right, they know that, so they'll do anything for you. American soldiers are amazing. They're amazing. If they know you care for them, I tell you, I'm getting chills thinking about and talking about it. They'll do anything. They'll go through a brick wall for you. They'll do anything for you. And I've seen it in combat, the bravest people on the face of the earth. You know, saving people they don't even know, costing themselves their lives for people they don't even know who can never even thank them. But they'll do it if they know why. A good book is Start With Why. That's a really good book out there. Start With Why. It's a little old now. I can't remember the author. Oh, Simon Sinek. How could I forget Simon? For God's sakes, he talked to us. Simon Sinek, Start With Why. You can't always explain why the way you'd like to. But when you can, you better. And if you do, they'll do anything in the world for you. And if they know you care, they'll do anything in the world for you. I guarantee it. Let me give you another example. Like when I was a young leader, I was a lieutenant as a company commander, and another lieutenant next to me commanded at Fort Carson. And I can't even remember what happened. Something happened. We went up and got our butts chewed by the battalion commander. Had a really tough battalion commander who yelled at us, both of us. He went back, got his whole company together, and kind of essentially yelled at them. I went back, didn't say a word. I had the first sergeant come in. Sir, it'll never happen again. I had the platoon sergeants come in. Sir, that'll never happen again. I had the platoon leaders come in. I didn't have to say a word. It never happened again. That other company commander was eventually relieved on a reforger, actually slapped by the battalion commander. It was back in the day, 85. He got ambushed by the entire Luxembourg army. There were 3 of them, and ambushed him. And the battalion commander was very upset. I pulled up afterwards, mech unit, and he was slapped and sent home relieved. But it all started with, again, going back to building that team and how you handle things. You got to show you care. And oftentimes you have to, do it at the expense of, this is what's interesting. People will say, well, did you always want to be a general? I never thought in a million years I'd be a general. Never in a million years. Because I always tried to do what was right, and oftentimes that meant you maybe weren't doing something that was that popular, or you're doing something for the soldiers, the right thing, and that's just the thing you got to do. And I've gone into, division commanders said, relieve me, not Captain so-and-so, that type thing. You've got to do that. And if you're thinking about yourself and your rank and your promotion, you're not going to do that. And you won't be the leader you should be, and our soldiers deserve. They deserve that leader that truly cares for them, will stand up for them. So, good question. I hope that answered it. Yeah.
Sir, Cadet Lewis, LSU, go Tigers.
Ooh, LSU, great in all sports almost.
That's right, sir.
Unbelievable.
My question is, with resiliency being so important to today's Army and with soldiers coming in not having the skills that, say, past generations have, what tools are available to us as leaders to help strengthen those soldiers' resiliency?
These are really great questions. Just fantastic. The good news is now we have a lot of tools available. Great question. Comprehensive Soldier and Family Fitness Center is at every installation you'll be at. Everyone I can think of. And if it's not there, another one will support it close by if you're at a real small installation. But the Comprehensive Soldier and Family Fitness Center, they've consolidated for the West Point cadets here. You know the Center for Enhanced Performance? Okay, so that started at West Point. Captain Brown worked there a long time ago with football coach Jim Young, and Dr. Lou Choka was a brainchild behind. But anyways, taking the principles of sports psychology and applying them to leadership, and a whole bunch of things that came out of that started at West Point, and we saw tremendous results. I've used it ever since then, and everything from marksmanship to team building to you name it. And it started to spread across the Army, and they created Army Centers for Enhanced Performance. There are about 16 of them. Then they merged them into the Comprehensive Soldier and Family Fitness Center. So you have basic resiliency, and you have what's called enhanced performance, but I would tell you it's really, today, it's minimum performance. They teach you focus and concentration skills, energy management, goal setting, team building, visualization. You'll have that CSF2, it's commonly called, and it'll be at every installation you're at. Now, the sad part is, unfortunately, folks don't take advantage of that enough. Again, they get busy, and some people, well, do I really need that? Others take, and I will tell you, you could walk in a unit and tell if they were using CSF2 and those things or not, because of the way the unit would perform. So smart folks are taking advantage of that all over the Army. It was tough when we were deployed back. It was very tough. Folks were on an incredible pace. Now we're seeing more and more use because we're still deploying, but not as much. slowed down a little bit, not a ton, but a little bit. So CSF2 is what I would tell you. And they will come to your unit and like do a team building event. The team building event I talked about, they facilitated that for me as a brigade commander, and they ran that for me, that whole process. And they'll do that type stuff. They'll, you know, the number one thing I made mandatory as a company, battalion, and brigade commander, I made mandatory goals, goal setting. And what we did is we taught the NCOs how to truly help goals. Because just about any soldier you ask, do you have goals? Oh, yeah, I've got goals. Well, what are they? Well, you know, I want to be a sergeant. Okay, what are you doing about it? Well, you know, I don't have time. My squad leader's keeping me busy. Yet you go by the room on the weekend, and there they are 30 hours straight playing Call of Duty. Their eyes are glazed over, but they don't have time, you know. And what they don't have is focus, and they need to be focused. All of you are sitting here because you've had goals. Whether you wrote them down or not, you've had goals, or you wouldn't be sitting where you are as the top cadets. And then there's the West Pointers who just happen to be here. But for the others, you're top cadets, you're sitting here, you had goals, and just kidding. Obviously, they had goals to get to West Point and all that good stuff. And so goal setting is really key, but I will tell you, it's a forgotten art. And you'll see your average soldier become your best soldier with focused goals. Now, back in the day, I actually used a goals book and made them fill it out. The first line supervisors did. We taught them. Now they have apps on your phone. You can even email them to your supervisor, all kinds of stuff. But CSF2 will help you with that, how to do it. And so very smart to learn about that. And just about everywhere, not all, but most of you going to your basic course. I know Benning has a CSF2 if you're in IBOLC or ABOLC. I commanded Benning earlier, and they've got one there that's tremendous. And just about everywhere does, not all, but you can find out about it. CSF2, almost all your posts have it. Good question. Other questions?
Going off of IBOLC and ABOLC, sir, I'm Cadet Nailing from University of Southern California. So I was just wondering, you're the former commander of the Maneuver Center of Excellence, so about probably 40-50% of this room is going to be going down there sometime this next year. So just wondering if you had any advice for us, sir, on that.
Yeah, great question. When you're at USC there, wander by the Institute of Creative Technology. Have you been there yet? Okay, that's a Defense Department funded organization. We use them a lot here. Has anybody used the Elite Counseling, laptop computer Elite Counseling? They developed that. They've developed a whole bunch of really innovative training ideas. So it's right there they're at USC. They did the avatars for the movie Avatar. They developed those. They're really cutting edge. So it'd be really interesting for you to go by and just see what they can do. Dr. Randy Hill runs it. Tell him I sent you. Go by there, and he'll show you some cool stuff. They're working a lot of Oculus, virtual reality, augmented reality stuff, which we're using, you'll see in training. You know, currently, we train in these big buildings with fake M1s and Bradleys and stuff, and pretty soon you'll be in the tank with the glasses on, and you'll be able to be, you know, rehearsing for a mission out in the field, motor pool, anywhere, and be able to do it. It's pretty cool. It's right around the corner, and they're helping us with that, so it's pretty neat. So getting back to your question, for all of you going, not just those going to Benning, typically, and I feel a little embarrassed to be up here telling you this, because typically, like when I got to my basic course, it was like I got out of Shawshank Prison, you know. You see him run out, his hands are in the air. I got out of West Point, and I kind of, you have this freedom, and so I did not put the effort into it I should, let's just say that. So that was a mistake. I mean, party, have fun, congratulate yourself, but then get focused in your basic course, because let me tell you, it's also a little different. You know, again, I was back in WW2, the old days. But back in the Cold War, we did not know we were going right into combat, and in fact, did not expect to go right into combat, quite honestly. So you could kind of rationalize doing that. You all, I would not have that attitude. I do not think you're going to be bored anytime soon. I wish we were. I mean, believe me, I wish you all would be bored. You're not going to be bored. This is a crazy world, and you'll be involved somewhere, something, be it, again, humanitarian assistance, disaster response, or Kim Jong-un gets crazy and goes south. You know, who knows? So when you're in your basic course, pay attention. First of all, those friends you meet there will be friends for your entire career. I mean, I was in basic course with folks I still work with on a daily basis, you know, so it's pretty neat relationships. But second of all, you know, you may have had a great source of commissioning, a great ROTC program. Shame on you if you think you can't learn anymore. And you're going to lead soldiers. And so take advantage of the cadre down there. Take advantage of the lessons they teach you, the opportunities down there. And I'd say those folks right before you are doing a pretty darn good job of that now, because they know they're gonna have to go somewhere. This is not like sit around bored. No matter where they're going, they're going to be involved. So they're very serious. So take it very seriously, and then ask a lot of questions, and you learn a lot from each other. All the basic officer leadership courses have really gotten better. We still have a ways to go. We still have a ways to go. We just created this thing called Army University. All right, we had 86 stovepipe schools in the Army. 86 separate schools, from schools that taught an E5 sergeant, actually E4 promotable, all the way up to schools that taught a colonel. And they were all good. But I would describe it as there were ink spots out there of great things happening, and you couldn't bring the ink spots together. It was very difficult. So under Army University, they're all together. They share ideas. They share info. ROTC is probably the best example I know. General Combs has taken what we've learned and changed ROTC fundamentally for all of you in literally, it seems like overnight to me, but it's literally years, taken years, a couple years, but it's so much better than when I watched my daughter go through in 2004, 2005. Totally different. Totally. Now, we still have a ways to go. Not everything's perfect, but the more you put in, the more you get. I'm going to tell you something. A secret to success in life that I didn't discover till a little bit later on is people who are successful, whether you're military, whether you're a CEO, whether you're a coach, they have a couple of things. One of them is a passion for what they're doing, and it causes this. They're never satisfied. Not like in a bad way, like, they're upset, but they're always learning, discovering. I use a guy that talked me into going to West Point, Coach K, Coach Krzyzewski, the basketball coach. And so I played for him a long time ago, and I've watched him over the years a lot. We're still friends and all. And to watch him, everybody said when he started coaching the Olympic team, oh, why is Coach K doing that? He's not going to win any more championships. It'd take him away from Duke. But guess what? His passion for learning, he got better. He took things from the pros. He learned about a new fast break. He learned about this. He learned about, because he has this passion to learn. Even though he's the winningest coach of all time in college basketball, he continues to learn and use that. You have to develop that same passion. Even if you don't know, I was getting out in 5 years, do my 5 years and get out for certain, right? But then I started to meet these wonderful soldiers and people in the Army, and it like sucks you in. They're phenomenal. They're unbelievable. You'll have a bond that's unlike anywhere else. And I saw that because my dad was in business, so I saw what business is like. There's some great businesses, but they'll never have the bond of being in the military. The brother and sister relationship is unbelievable. And I really enjoyed it. So don't close doors on yourself. Even if you think you're going to get out in 5 years, that's stupid to just go out and kind of half-step it. Have a passion for it. Pour into it. And if you get out, fine. You gave it your best. And maybe you want to go do something else, that's fine. But don't half-step and close those doors on yourself where you have to and you don't. And what you'll find is you'll start to develop. And I would tell you, if it's not your passion, then don't stay in. Get out and find what is your passion and follow it, because that's success in life. You have to be passionate about it, love what you're doing to be successful. And so that would be my advice to you. Start that passion there and ask that sergeant working with you little things about the Bradley that you may need to know. Ask him about what his best platoon leader was like. Volunteer for, even though they say never volunteer, I'd say that's crazy. Volunteer for a weekend thing where you're going to work and learn some more. Volunteer for, so get out there, start that passion early in your basic officer leader course, and you'll be way ahead of everybody else. Your soldiers will benefit from it.